Hello dear patron, and welcome to the Spookeasy. My name's Monty, and I'll be your host for the video. 2023 has come to an end, but I thought it would be a fun way to celebrate the year by taking a look at some of the best animatronics this Halloween season had to offer. We saw several of the major Halloween retailers really step up their game this past year to provide some breathtaking and iconic animatronics. It was a tough choice, but I've compiled what I believe to be the 10 best animatronics of 2023. To narrow down the pool, this list only includes animatronics that can be found in-store at the major retailers, Party City, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Spirit Halloween. Additionally, I didn't consider animatronics that were online only or were returning from previous years. When choosing the entries for this list, I took into consideration price, quality of design and materials, and execution. Now, of course, despite these criteria, this selection and list is influenced by my opinion at the end of the day. Please feel free to leave your own thoughts and favorites in a comment. With that out of the way, step up to the bar, get yourself a drink, and join me as I go through the 10 best animatronics of 2023. Starting off at number 10, the Party City Leatherface. When Party City released their lineup back in June, eyebrows were raised upon seeing we would be getting a third Leatherface animatronic, in addition to Lowe's and Spirit Halloween's. It looked good, and it was made by Techie Toys, who have had a solid track record the last several years, so hopes were high. When it was finally unveiled and released to the public, it was a sight to behold. Standing at an imposing 6.5 feet tall, and featuring incredible detailing in the face and arms, it was quickly considered the best Leatherface animatronic of the year, and even being put on par with the classic Gemmy one from 2006 and 7. The level of realism in the face and eyes is haunting, and the attention to detail in the costume and design of the chainsaw are stellar. Its animation starts off subdued, with the chainsaw vibrating and rumbling, before Leatherface thrusts it above his head, then proceeding to raise and lower it before bringing it back down to its resting position. This is a very effective jump scare that fits the character. Throughout the animation, the prop would noticeably wobble, which would normally be a point of criticism, but I think works very well in this case given Leatherface's spastic and manic movements in the film. The audio was also character accurate, containing chainsaw noises and wailing and squealing from Leatherface. This is a superb animatronic and by far one of the best Party City has ever released. However, it is at the bottom of the list because I have a few issues with it. My biggest issue with this guy is the motor that causes him to vibrate, simulating the rumbling of the chainsaw. The motor makes a very loud and distracting squeaking sound. This is something that could be covered up by turning up the volume, but I still think it's a distracting aspect. To add on to that, I think the vibrating motor makes the chainsaw look cheap. The thin, plastic chainsaw blade wobbles around when the motor activates, and I don't think it looks very good. I infinitely prefer the rotating chainsaw blade on the Spirit Halloween version, which gives it more dimension and realism. I feel the impeccable detailing of the face, arms, and chainsaw are done a disservice by this aspect, not just because of the noise, but also from the cheap wobbling of the blade. Speaking of the chainsaw, apparently once you assemble the blade and arms to it, there's no disassembling it ever. This is something Techie and Crazy Crate have done for a while with their jump scare props, and I really dislike it personally. With as many animatronics as I have, it's pretty essential to be able to fully disassemble them to comfortably put back in the box and store away for next year. The process made much more difficult by now having a larger assembly to pack up. Now, there may very well be a way to still accomplish this with the arm and chainsaw assembly. However, I still feel this was a bad design. To wrap up the Party City Leatherface, I think this is a gorgeously designed animatronic with a very effective jump scare and audio accurate to the character. It's very tall and imposing with a high quality build. The biggest downfalls with this are purely superficial and subjective, I suppose, with the physique being too slender for the character, the noisy motor that causes the whole animatronic to shake, consequently affecting its realism, and the inability to disassemble the chainsaw. Even with all of that being said, this is still head and shoulders above the other two Leatherface animatronics this year, and one of the best Party City has ever had to offer. In number 9, we're going to be taking a trip over to Home Depot with the Boogeyman. Back in March, a few images leaked showing several Home Depot animatronics for the year. One that caught people's attention and became a topic of conversation was this Bagul-looking creature from Sinister. Its height and unique look were intriguing, and there was a lot of speculation about what it did. Well, when Home Depot finally unveiled their entire lineup of the 2023 Halloween animatronics, we got our answer, and we were able to see it in its full glory. Standing 8 feet tall, this thing was truly menacing and featured some bone-chilling detail on the hands and face. It had a lot of animation, from moving arms, rotating waist, and even a moving mouth, despite there being no mouth. The streaks of skin across the eyes were a neat additional but no less disturbing detail. On top of that, the hands and eyes lit up in an otherworldly white color that you felt pierce right through you. The Home Depot Boogeyman, or Dream Demon, perfectly embodied the creature you feared was hiding in your closet waiting to snatch you. Its slightly crooked and hunched posture, skinny physique, and manic flailing arms all add to the horror of this character and give it a definitive Boogeyman design. However, it is only at number 9, so I do have a few critiques. The biggest problem I have with this guy is the audio.
I am inside your head. There is no escape. There is no respite. I am your living nightmare, your bringer of pain and death. I will pull your memories apart, piece by piece, until there is only fear and pain.
While the dialogue fits with the character, it's very generic and cookie-cutter seasonal visions monologues that go in one ear and out the other. It doesn't add to the menace of the character's design, and even takes away from it. It becomes more corny than actually creepy, which is a shame. The voice delivering the lines also does it no favors. It's a generic, growling voice used by so many other seasonal visions props, and fails to give this guy a distinctive sound and personality. What I think would have worked better are simply just sound effects and tracks similar to what Emilie uses, while also having some maniacal cackling to accompany the moving mouth. If they really wanted to get morbid with this thing, they maybe could have also added child screams in the background. This isn't really a character that needs to say anything, as reinforced by its lack of mouth. I feel its disturbing design would have been better served by some creepy soundscapes and effects to give the character a voice, rather than dialogue and audio that's been used by dozens of other animatronics. Another major problem holding this animatronic so far down the list is the atrocious paint job on the suit. There are supposed to be spattering of blood across his suit depicted by various splotches of paint, but it looks like nothing more than exactly that, splotches of paint. It's so cheap and completely diminishes the effect they were attempting. All in all, the Home Depot Boogeyman was an animatronic that was revealed and hyped up long before the Halloween season started. It was a behemoth of an animatronic at 8 feet tall, and perfectly resembled the monster you anticipated was lurking in the dark recesses of your closet waiting to pounce. Not to mention, the amount of detail in its ghoulish face is sure to make anyone double-check their room before going to sleep. It also featured a wide range of animation and lighting to really bring it to life. Unfortunately, the generic audio and voice do this prop a great disservice, and demote it down to number 9. For number 8, we'll be making our first trip over to Spirit Halloween to have a heart attack in Jack's mausoleum with Dagger Mike. When I first saw this guy in the reveal videos, I was less than thrilled. To be fair, these jump scare kid props like Little Skelly Bones and Ellie Hatchet didn't really do it for me, so this guy wasn't up my alley to begin with. Over the course of the season, I came to appreciate him so much more as he would, without fail, cause unsuspecting shoppers to scream their lungs out. He even managed to scare a dog to the point of leaving a puddle in the middle of the mausoleum. The mechanism is cleverly constructed in a way that, when it pops up, the head lifts and the arms raise, adding to the effect and giving more life to the prop. Having built a couple of these, I got to see the quality of the materials used for Mike, and I was pleasantly surprised. He's a very effective little clown boy, with some unsettling detail in the face, and is pretty much everything Johnny Punk wishes it was. I have a few issues with it though. First of all, this was the first and only animatronic to stop working in our store, aside from the obvious, of course. After a month of being used, not nearly as much as Hellspawn or Gravewatcher I will add, it stopped retracting. In addition, I found the paint job on the face and teeth lackluster and unfinished. It looked more like a doll than an actual child, which wasn't what they were trying to achieve. Overall, Dagger Mike is a prop that I've grown to appreciate and respect throughout the season, even if it isn't one of my favorites. It has a quick pop-up animation that consistently had customers screaming. The demonic design of the face alone would be enough to scare onlookers before even activating it. Its shoes, hands, head, and costume were all made from very high quality materials, and with a price tag of $170, this was a great value. What keeps this in the bottom half of the list is the fact it stopped retracting halfway through the season, and the paint job on the face left a lot to be desired. It's no wonder this quickly became one of the most popular and sought after of the 2023 season. Continuing the streak of Spirit Halloween animatronics in the number 7 spot is Hellspawn. This guy shot up through my favorites faster than his animation. I was initially disappointed when I found out this was going to be a reskin of Mr. Dark. My disappointment wasn't just because it all but confirmed Mr. Dark wouldn't be returning this year, but I felt it robbed the opportunity for Spirit's first devil animatronic in a good long while to be something unique. When I saw him in person, I was impressed by the detail in his face and hands. It was very lifelike, and I could tell there was a lot of care and attention given to sculpting them. Hellspawn would only continue to impress me once I saw customers' reactions to him. From day one, he sent grown adults staggering back and even taking off running. He was beloved by customers and marveled at by kids, but despite the fact he was activated the most out of any other animatronic that was set up every single day, he lasted the whole season. Based on my experiences with Mr. Dark, I was convinced he would stop working. However, he lasted right up to the day we sold them. This is a clear testament to the work Techie put into improving the mechanism, and ensuring it had more durability and longevity than Mr. Dark. Not to mention, Hellspawn springs up faster and much more violently than its predecessor, which I feel only adds to the jump scare. I also really like his loud, booming voice and laughter, as well as the howling sound effects that accompany it. Of course, I do have a few issues with this guy. I feel like he would have benefited a lot from having more than one phrase. I don't have a concrete or clear explanation for why, but I feel this prop would have been more appealing and more interesting if it had a rotation of several phrases. With that being said, I'm not a fan of the phrase they used. It works well for it being part of a graveyard display, of course, but I think it should have had something pertaining to it being from hell. Maybe have it warn about a doorway to the underworld, threaten to cast onlookers into a flame of eternal torment if they don't leave, or attempt to lure, deceive people like how he was characterized in his description. The Harbinger of Hell's dialogue back in 2015 was perfect, and not only was in character, but the voice fit the design.
You have darkness in you. Come with me, my child, into the heart of darkness itself.
There's a lot you can do with this kind of character and story, but I feel like they didn't do what they could have with Hellspawn, which is disappointing. If they were only going to have one phrase, I think it should have been much longer to last the duration of the reset. This was an issue pointed out with Mr. Dark, and it wasn't rectified with Hellspawn. It takes a while for this prop to reset, and it's a bit awkward when you're waiting for it to finish while there's just ambient sounds playing. I think its audio should have been more of a monologue that starts once he fully extends and lasts until he's just about back to his resting position. This is something that all of the Rising props like the creepy Rising doll and Bog Reaper did, and it worked really well. My final issue, or gripe in this case, is with the implementation of the light in his mouth. When I first saw the image on the box, it looked like there was a flame burning from within his mouth, which I assumed would be an orange light from inside. I even thought there might be a flickering flame effect, either by use of a light or screen, Wishful thinking, I know, but I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when I saw how this was actually executed, with the orange light in the roof of the mouth. I don't think it conveyed the effect very well. To wrap up my thoughts on Hellspawn, this was an animatronic that won me over by the end of the season, thanks to its dramatically improved quality from Mr. Dark, resulting in it flawlessly operating throughout the entire season. The detail in the face and hands are immaculate, and help make it feel more real. Its booming and commanding voice pair well with its imposing height, although I have issues with the actual audio that was selected, and how I think having more lines of dialogue, or one long phrase at the very least, would have made this a more interesting prop. I feel like they should have gone with something that better fits the character, and makes more use of the time needed for it to reset. One of the best animatronics of the year for sure, but only manages to make it to number 7. Flying into the number 6 spot is Emilie. I honestly didn't know this animatronic was a thing until I saw the box in one of my stores and the description piqued my interest. An over 7 foot tall animatronic that lunges nearly 4 feet forward out towards guests as the head lifts up and the eyes glow red? This was the same kind of thing you'd see in professional props. And at only $280? What a steal! While this one wasn't displayed in most stores, it became a stunning success once word got out what it had to offer, and was an instant favorite amongst animatronic collectors. It's not hard to see why. Emilie took the effective concept and mechanism of Mr. Dark and retooled it to provide heart-stopping scares in a whole new way. Haunters are by no means strangers to jump scare props or ghosts, but the first of its kind mechanism that quickly lunged so far made Emilie feel so unique. The cherry on top, for me at least, was the disturbing and haunting sound as it retracts. The issues I have with this are minor and subjective, but significant enough to where I kept it back in the number 6 spot. One issue I have with this is the amount of space required for this thing. Obviously, when you have a mechanism that lunges out as far as it does, the reasonable expectation is that it's going to be large and take up more space. However, its nearly 4 foot long activation requires extra room for it to not smack into anything or anyone in a haunt or Halloween display. Even when in resting mode, the scissor mechanism extends pretty far behind it. This isn't something I'm willing to hold against Emilie that much, since it is par for the course with this kind of mechanism. But it does present a bit of a challenge when incorporating that animatronics higher on this list don't have. Another issue I have with Emilie is the face. I think it looks too cartoonish. It looks like a design a preschooler would come up with when asked to draw a ghoul. It's very simplistic and lacks a lot of detail, which I think works against it. What makes Demonica, for example, such a scary prop is the amount of detail that went into the sculpt and paint job of the face. There's a lot of dimensions in the face, from the cheekbones to the nose and brow. That's not even mentioning the mouth and fangs. It's a very disturbing prop even before you plug it in. Emilie had a head sculpt that's very narrow and the face is very flat. The paint job tries to give it some depth, but it's very obviously a paint job and doesn't succeed. They were onto something here, but it definitely would have benefited from a head that was human-like in proportions rather than just a sideways oval, and had a more intricate face sculpt that depicted a horrifying creature. Rather than being a ghost that is scary because it lunges toward you, this could have been an unsettling ghoul you don't want to go near, which makes it all the more terrifying when it starts to come towards you. Like I said, these are obviously heavily swayed by my opinion and preferences, but I did preface that would factor into things. So with Emilie, this prop reconfigures a very effective mechanism for a whole new kind of surprise, and will undoubtedly be a trailblazer. Its mechanism is incredibly well built and sturdy. It's tall at over 7 feet, it lunges out a lengthy 4 feet, and has some disturbing sound effects and music. However, I feel the size works against it slightly, as it's limited to where and how it can be utilized. I also don't think the horror of this character was fully tapped into with a flat and cartoonish face. Regardless, Emilie's pros far outweigh any cons I may level against it, and is a truly unique animatronic. I just don't think it quite ekes its way into the top 5. We're getting into the upper echelons here, and the number 5 spot is going to be occupied by the 13-foot tall Jack Skellington. Halloween props with double-digit heights have been taking the world by storm the last couple years, with retailers finding new creatures to extend to upwards of 12 feet. We've seen werewolves, scarecrows, ghouls, mummies, pumpkins, even a mad scientist, and of course, skeletons. But Home Depot took their first step into officially licensed towering props with Jack Skellington. This guy was a picture-perfect depiction of the Pumpkin King, with his lanky limbs, large skeletal claws, and head that not only used servo motors to move, but even had the option to change out the brow to give different expressions. The arms themselves could even be posed to your liking. When activated, color-changing lights would shine on his face as it moved its head and mouth. Its audio consisted of different segments of the Jack's Lament song.
What I do, I am the best, for my talents are renowned far and wide.
All of this for $400, the same price as the Crypt Keeper, Slim, and Martian Warrior from Spirit Halloween. A couple issues I have that hold this guy back is the mouth movement causes this guy to wobble and the head to bounce. Perhaps it's just something that sticks out to me, but I found this distracting, and it took away from the effects slightly. I'm also not a fan of spreading the one song across all of its audio tracks, rather than having one dedicated to it, and the rest occupied by some of his other iconic songs or quotes from the movie. The original Jack Skellington animatronic from Spirit had 12 different lines from the movie. It feels like a wasted opportunity, honestly. In conclusion, this guy is a stunning piece. It grabs your attention with its height, movement, design, and audio. Its presence commands as much as its movie counterparts did. The servo motors in the head give him a lot of fluidity and movement, and the ability to customize thanks to the opposability and interchangeable brow is a nice touch. The 13-foot tall Jack Skellington from Home Depot is a gorgeous adaptation of the character, with the only real drawbacks being nitpicks of the head bobbing and selection for the dialogue. It's a giant prop with so much to offer for the $400 price tag. Fourth best animatronic of the year is Darling Dolly, continuing Techie's reign. Dolls are creepy, right? But what about a 7-foot tall mutant doll with large root-like claws? On top of that, what if it lunged forward with a blood-curdling scream followed by a child giggling? Oh, now that's the stuff of nightmares. Darling Dolly took the reliable creepiness of dolls and created something truly unique and haunting to kids and adults. It's not overly complicated in design or animation, but it does the job and leaves a lasting impression. It's an imposing creature with gruesome detail and a haunting cracked doll face. The kind of creature you don't want to get any closer to you, then it does exactly that for a scare that'll make your heart skip a few beats. As with most, if not all of Techie's animatronics this year, Darling Dolly is very well designed and built. It's easy to assemble and the mechanism is sturdy. This thing lasted the entire season at pretty much every store I visited. Not only that, it also scared the wits out of grown adults and even brought some kids to tears. The face and clothing are very high quality and made from materials that give it an authentic look. Its design also allows it to be used in whatever setting you desire: cemetery, forest, house, doll factory, etc. It's neutral enough to let hunters use it however they want. The only issue I would levy against Darling Dolly is I wish the vine-like mutant hands were made out of similar material as the vines used in the displays. The hands it does use work perfectly fine on their own and are of good quality. However, I think it would have just been the cherry on top and a final detail of gruesome authenticity. I'm fine with it as is, just something I think would have better executed what they were attempting. Overall, this is a take on a tried and true horror archetype that brilliantly achieves what it was going for with flying colors. It's a disturbing creature on its own, made even more horrifying by the fact that it lunges out to try and get you with an ear-piercing scream intercutting childish giggles. With a reliable build using high-quality materials and less than $300, it's no surprise Darling Dolly was one of the most popular this year and is in the top 5 for this list. Alrighty, here we are, the top 3 animatronics of the year. And at number 3, we'll be making our first stop at Lowe's of all places with the Pneumatic Grandpa. It's pretty surreal to have pneumatic animatronics available in retail, let alone to be from Lowe's. There were 3 different pneumatic props they released this year: a clown, a ghost woman, and a zombified grandpa. While I liked the design of the ghost woman, I wasn't too impressed with their animation or utilization of the pneumatics. I felt similar with the clown, but he grew on me throughout the season. The grandpa, on the other hand, looked great. I thought he was by far the best out of the 3 pneumatic props. Its depiction of a corpse trying desperately to lift itself up and out of the ground is perfectly simulated by its quick and startling motion while violently thrashing about. It's a classic Halloween prop and concept, given a much more disturbing and unique touch thanks to the unnatural flailing and thrashing of the pneumatics feature. Its face doesn't boast a lot of detail, but not only do I think it doesn't need a lot, I also think this works in its favor to convey a decomposing corpse with black, lifeless eyes and lacking expression. To close out the number 3 spot, the Lowe's Pneumatic Grandpa is one of the first pneumatic animatronics to be released in retail and was the best of the 3 available. Its frantic thrashing and flailing make for a horrific sight, and the disheveled, grimy appearance make it look much more realistic. The expressionless and black eyes, coupled with the zombie moans and yelling, create such an unsettling effect that fits this type of character so well. It's simplistic in design and execution, but no less effective, and utilizes the pneumatic function in a creative and creepy way. If this is a sign of things to come for pneumatics in retail, I can't wait to see what is ahead of us. At number 2, the best Spirit Halloween animatronic of the year is Heckles the Clown. This guy was done dirty this year. Despite being lauded and appreciated by haunters for his detail and lifelike face in the stock photos, the initial released model was, shall we say, not what was advertised. Seasonal Visions is notorious for their animatronics' heads being misshapen, but this was an instance of poor quality control, plain and simple. In an unprecedented move, Spirit recalled the animatronic from their website and shipments, and many feared it wouldn't see a return. However, the company moved heaven and earth to correct the mistake, and even sent replacement heads to those who initially bought it. Before long, Heckles was back on the website, and even started appearing in stores in his originally intended glory. In a landscape overrun with clown animatronics, it was nice to get one that wasn't some over-the-top monster or caricature, and one that represents why clowns are so scary. An exuberant and jovial appearance and demeanor with seemingly good intentions that are hiding something much more sinister. In this case, Heckles was a severely depressed and defeated clown that resorted to filling balloons full of poisonous gas as a sick joke. His dialogue reinforced this and showed the attempts he was making to hide these evil intentions.
Step right up and get your balloons here. Only 10 cents. And what's a day at the circus without a balloon? Just don't come a-knocking for refunds. Don't ask why.
To demonstrate there was something off about his balloon, it would light up and form various evil faces. His downtrodden face and melancholy audio are one thing, but what ties the whole character together is his posture. Heckles was designed and built to look hunched over and be weak in the knees to reinforce his demeanor. I'm probably going out on a limb here by claiming this may be one of the best and most well-developed characters Spirit has ever created. To conclude with Heckles, it's a crying shame he was prevented from getting the widespread recognition he deserves, because this is truly an animatronic that stands out from the pack. It's a clown that's creepy in a way much more unique and subtle than most of the ones that have been produced. Other clowns will go on some diatribe about how they're going to hurt you or have very monstrous features, leaving little room for subtlety. Heckles, on the other hand, is a very disturbed and broken person, with evil intentions, trying to hide it behind an unsuspecting and vibrant veneer. He features 6 lines of dialogue that attempt to hide his darker nature with jovial banter and jokes, but he can't help himself. His face is very detailed and lifelike, with a quivering lower lip, teary eyes, and a large gash on his head. There's still a bit of distortion with this face that I think helps to create a bit of an uncanny valley effect. Every aspect of this animatronic works to characterize him, from his face to his audio, the lighting in the balloon, and his posture. Heckles is a phenomenally well-realized character, and is not only the best animatronic Spirit Halloween released this year, but is one of their best in a long time. Before revealing my pick for the best animatronic of the year, I wanted to give a few honorable mentions to some props that were excellent and among the best of the year, but didn't make the list because of the criteria I mentioned in the beginning. The first one I want to highlight was far and away the most popular from Spirit Halloween this year, and that was the Martian Warrior. One of the last of Spirit's lineup to be revealed, the Martian was the first full-bodied standing alien animatronic to be released by them, and served to highlight the cult classic Mars Attacks movie. It boasted some impressive detailing in the head, costume, and body, as well as featured a unique misting effect in the blaster. The reason this didn't make it into the list was in large part due to the price. I don't feel like $400 is at all justified when there's only one animation with the side-to-side head turning, and plays generic outer space sound effects rather than actual audio from the movie. I think it would have heavily benefited from having animation in the torso or arms to move the blaster from side to side. It's nice to get an alien animatronic, and for Mars Attacks to start getting more love, and the design for the thing certainly deserves commendation. However, I think the price is asking too much for too little. Regardless, it was immensely popular, so I still felt it was worth mentioning honorably. Another animatronic from the year worth mentioning is the long-awaited return of the Monica. An animatronic people have been clamoring to return for years, the Monica made a triumphant return online after the Halloween season, with an updated mechanism and only slight cosmetic changes. On top of that, it only cost $150. Why it wasn't on the list was simply because it was online only, which is a shame because it would have fit perfectly in the cemetery display and been a great inclusion for the company's 40th anniversary. Finally, PhD 3000 receives the most honorable of mentions, because this guy is simply a work of art. If not for it being online only, he would have absolutely been crowned as the best animatronic of the year. His cyborg components are immaculately detailed. He utilizes a variety of lights to help it stand out, features a wide range of fluid servo animations from his head, mouth, eye, and even eyelid. His voice and lines are also perfectly suited for this character, and not only create an unsettling effect, but stick with you long afterwards.
Your chances of escape are less than 1%. Goodbye.
It's a character we haven't seen brought to life in the Halloween retail industry before, nor have we seen anything else executed with such realism and attention to detail. And at number 1, the best animatronic of 2023 is Lethal Lily from Home Depot. This one came out of left field. Despite a part of the dress, this one wasn't seen in any of the aforementioned leaked images of Home Depot's lineup for the year. When they unveiled the entirety of their 2023 animatronic roster, we were introduced to Lily, one of the most sophisticated and detailed animatronic released in retail. In a word, she was mind-blowing. The fluid motion in the head, eyes, mouth, and eyelids were astounding, with comparisons even being made to props you'd see in Disney and Universal rides. Despite the advanced animations, it was a simple character, a seemingly kind-hearted and harmless old woman with a malicious agenda and plans to ensnare passersby. A pretty spot-on depiction of a witch, brought to life in a way that hadn't been seen before. As opposed to most witch animatronics, it didn't have a grotesque and overly creepy design no kid would want to go near, let alone follow them back to their shack or take part in whatever sinister plans they had. Similar to Heckles, it depicts what makes witches so scary and such a threat, in that they look normal on the outside, but house sinister intentions. By the time you realize this, it's too late. The many lines of dialogue are long and express such devious plans, couched in a sense of levity and charisma to get you to put your guard down. Even without the hat, this thing is very tall, adding to the menace, and has a very full, lifelike body. Its hands are yellowed and grotesque, while the fingers have sickly green, talon-like fingernails. It holds a staff in a basket containing a frog and potion bottle. During the activation, the staff shines a green light on Lily's face, while it and the basket glow green. The frog's eyes light up yellow as well. The detail on each of the accessories is gorgeous, the frog and basket particularly being of note. One of the options on the control box allow you to just have the lights illuminated constantly without any animation or sound, which I think is a neat touch that adds more functionality. To wrap up the final entry on this list, Lethal Lily is a milestone in animatronic realism and design. Its fluidity and number of animations is akin to professional props. It is a perfect and authentic representation of a witch that seems friendly and trustworthy on the surface, but her more insidious nature is expressed through her multiple lines of dialogue. It's a tall prop with a realistic body shape that make an imposing presence. On top of that, the green light emitted from the staff and basket give it an eerie aura. All of that for less than $300. Lethal Lily was the unexpected champion of the year that blew people away, and much deservedly tops this list at number 1. Well, that about wraps up this video. Thank you so much for visiting us today. I hope it was hospitable and enjoyable. I apologize for taking so long to get this video out. It wound up being a much more intensive editing process than expected. Please give us your thoughts on your experience, as well as your thoughts on our list down in the comments, and make sure to let us know what your favorites from the year were. Additionally, we want to hear from you what videos you'd like to see in the future. We've got some big plans for the upcoming year, but some customer input never hurts. Thank you very much again for hanging out with us today, and we will see you next time.